This video has been brought to you by Tees for Tims. Remember, if you're looking for some really good quality Celtic merch at this delicate time where you might not want to put money into the club, then choose the independent retailers like Tees for Tims. There is some fantastic designs available all across the website, like this one I am wearing now, amongst many others. If you're looking for gifts this Christmas time, anything at all, check out Tees for Tims and you will find so many there. Use code Ryan118 for a 10% discount at checkout. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and as we prepare for Celtic to return to action on Sunday, Brendan Rodgers has spoken, making it clear he expects big improvements upon the side's return to the pitch. We've got a few other wee stories to talk about as well in between that, so bear with me, we're going to get through it all. We're this close to having Celtic back, although for once, some people might not be quite looking forward to that. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. I just want to quickly say thank you to everybody who has been patient with me as I've gone through the process of getting a new PC. You will notice over time there's probably going to be some tinkering, some wee changes to editing and lighting and stuff like that, just as I get things back up to speed. So thank you all for your patience. We should be back to normal now. You'll be happy to see the normal microphone back in its place. So we've got a lot to cover today. Let's get to it, and let's get back to the standards that we set on this channel, which admittedly aren't very high. So here it is once more, a reminder of how the league table looks after 7 match days. Celtic are in second place, trailing Hearts by 2 points. That is the journey we are now on, to catch up with Hearts, to overtake Hearts and take our place back at the top of the table. And Celtic could do that in the next stretch of games, because we head to Tynecastle in a couple of weeks' time. However, you know, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be simple. Celtic haven't been great so far this season. We all know that. The players definitely know that. And Brendan Rodgers himself knows that. And if we want to overtake Hearts and put ourselves back on top of the table by the next international break, well, there has to be a significant improvement on the pitch. And Brendan Rodgers said exactly that today. Brendan Rodgers done a sit-down interview with Celtic TV, which was released earlier today, where he spoke about the need for improved quality and consistency with Celtic this season. He's held his hands up to things not being good enough, and there's really no escaping it. I don't think anybody can make excuses for the lack of quality we've shown so far this season, but of course Brendan Rodgers is the manager. He's the man that puts the team out every week and gives them their tactics. He needs to take a huge share of that responsibility, and according to him, we will see improvement. So here were Brendan Rodgers' exact words from that interview earlier today after the international break. He said it's always a good opportunity over the course of a break to get some of our younger players in, get some minutes and get some games. Others have been able to develop their football fitness, but it's important to have that period of rest when you've just come off the back of a hectic schedule and then you're prepared for another one. So we want to get the performances to a higher level, of course, in a more consistent way. It's really an exciting period. That's what Celtic's all about, playing in these games, playing the big games, and that for us, that collective of being together, is always the attitude we want to show. And like I say, we're excited by these games that are coming up. We want to go in, embrace the challenges, and everyone together fighting for the cause, because that is what Celtic is about. So Brendan Rodgers has called it a really exciting period, and I think that all of us as fans are in agreement. It certainly has to be more exciting than the last. Because the period there before the international break, Brendan, I hate to say it, as one of your biggest fans, we weren't very exciting. I think this international break was very well timed for this group of players and for Celtic in general. But I also think it presents an opportunity for Celtic to put a lot of the noise and a lot of the negativity behind them. I don't want to just sound like a broken record, but it is almost like a fresh start, or as I called it, a jump start to our season. But more importantly, I think it is just time to leave everything behind them. For us as fans, that's going to be pretty hard. We're going to be talking about the negatives of the transfer window, of the poor recruitment, of everything else that's been happening behind the scenes, and especially at a higher level within the walls of Celtic. But for the players and the manager in particular, I think that it's now really, really important they try and shut that noise out and they focus on what's happening on the pitch. Brendan Rodgers obviously had a very limited amount of players with him over the course of this couple of weeks. In fact, there will be 16 players returning to Lennoxtown over the course of this week that were missing through international duties, etc. But it's still a chance for Brendan to reevaluate and for the squad to reevaluate, and as I said, just to kind of come to, as a collective, to make things better. I've made it clear time and time again, and I think this is once again reinforced through the manager's comments today, that things can get better, and it pains me when there is this sort of notion out there that they can't. When things get tough at Celtic, and it's been the same for years, doesn't matter who's in charge, but especially now, I feel like there's this notion that because things are bad, they're going to remain bad and they will never be good again. In particular on the pitch I'm talking about here. That has always irked me a little bit. It certainly can get better, and I'm pretty sure it will get better. If it got any worse, then that would be huge cause for concern, and I really just don't see a way in how it gets worse. So I acknowledge that things can get better, and I certainly believe the manager when he thinks that things can get better and that everybody can rally around each other to make it better. There's no reason why we can't. The squad might not be at the standard we were hoping. We might not have depth in the areas that we need. And of course, we're coming back with a few fitness issues. But this is a manager that's got the best out of this squad time and time again. And he can do that. So I think it's really important that they stick together, that they look to get better. And hopefully it gets off to a good start this Sunday when we play Dundee. So here is the run of games that Celtic will play between now and the next international break. I'm sorry to remind you that there still is one more to go before Christmas. We have 7 games ahead of that November international break. Dundee, of course, being the first this weekend. We'll then have Sturm Graz next week at Celtic Park in Europa League match 3. Hearts at Tynecastle follows that. Then we have Falkirk on another midweek affair at Celtic Park. Rangers in the League Cup semi-final, of course, on November 2nd, and then we finish up with a midweek fixture away to Midtjylland on November 6th, and Kilmarnock the following weekend at Celtic Park. So those are the 7 games we have. Really tough when you lay it out on paper like that. You've got a derby semi-final, which could determine the winner of the first cup this season. You've got 2 European games, which could seal your fate if you don't win, to no progression to the next round of European football. You've obviously got a trip to Tynecastle. There is so many difficult fixtures in there for Celtic, and I think by the end of those 7 games, we'll really have the tone for our season set. We'll either have people elated and happy with getting through to the League Cup final, getting back on track in Europe and being top of the league, or we're going to have some serious conversations about what comes next if we're still chasing Hearts, if we're out the League Cup, if Europe is still going badly. It could go either way, but I'm definitely willing to hedge my bets on we can do this, we can get better and things will improve. And my expectation is that we'll improve. So let's talk about the hierarchy for a moment or two. I know I was trying to leave that in the past, but we do have some stories which affect how Celtic operate as a football club. And a couple of them that we'll probably try and dance over pretty quickly. Now, you'll remember there was a bit of outrage over the pricing of Europa League tickets for the first game at Celtic Park against Braga. Now, just a quick reminder, season ticket holders were offered their match packages, and then afterwards, tickets were released to general sale fans, and the prices were horrible. 45 quid a ticket universally. So that included adults, that included concessions and children. £45 was the going price from the club directly, which is ridiculous. You know, if you're charging an over 65 £45 who's living on their pension, if you're charging a child £45 who's probably at school maybe making money off a paper round or EMA, £45 is absolutely ridiculous. There was a lot of outrage towards that, and there has now been some tinkering. Celtic have got prices up for the next game against Sturm Graz, and the prices have been lowered. So now non-season ticket holders will stay at the same price, but concessions, under 13s and other prices have been lowered for other paying fans. £32 for under 16s, and concessions is now the price, and that has been changed after the outrage that the club faced over the first game against Braga. So is it signs that the club are listening? Yes, maybe. Is it a sign that the club have acknowledged that the stadium was empty against Braga? Probably more so. Yeah, It's a positive change. Is it enough change at that highest level? Maybe no yet. Hopefully there is more coming that will force that sort of change. Because at the top level, there has been some news over the past 24 hours in regards to shares. Now, of course, one of the main criticisms to Celtic fan action and trying to force change at the club is that we're not doing enough to force the hand of Dermot Desmond, the majority shareholder, that we're not doing enough to hurt his pockets, the pockets of the club, and that we're really not going to force any change unless Celtic fans seem to find a huge amount of shares. But there's been news over the past 24 hours which comes as quite a surprise and also quite confusing to me. Because these are the sort of headlines that were published late last night, that Celtic's second largest shareholder, worth over 13 billion quid, has reduced their stake in the club. They also have links with Juventus and Manchester United. Now, these were exclusives floated around various different tabloids, and apologies for the one that I have to use on screen here. Majority shareholder Dermot Desmond, of course, remains majority shareholder. However, the second highest shareholder, Lindsell Train Limited, owned by Michael Lindsell and Nick Train, have reduced their stake in the club by 0.69%. Now, that might not seem like a lot, 0.69%, that's less than 1%, but it is equal to around 750,000 shares. And in the world of finance, of course, that makes a huge difference. Their voting rights take a hit, dropping from 16.39% to 15.7% as well. So this is off the back of some very healthy and very good financial reports. This is off the back of, obviously the criticism that the club have faced at a higher level. Nobody really knows who Michael Lindsell or Nick Train are, and the headline used here in the tabloids, the word mysterious was used, and honestly, before this article was published, I had no idea who the second highest shareholders were at the club, or who Michael Lindsell and Nick Train are, and I still really don't. But this is obviously just quite interesting in regard to the kind of climate that surrounds Celtic right now, with all the fan anger, with all the questions about who owns shares and where shares should be. 750,000 shares have just went poof and been sold. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm an expert. I'm really not. That's not what this channel is for. There are people out there who know a lot more about shares and the running of Celtic than I do. I sit here mostly to talk about the football and the state of the club. This is beyond my realm of understanding, to be quite honest. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with these 750,000 shares, who they've been sold to, where they'll pop up. Is Desmond going to be next? Is he going to sell some shares? Nobody really knows the answer to that. People will speculate, and that's what I'm saying. Right now, probably means a whole lot of nothing. So we'll wait and see. Hopefully, it's 750,000 shares that fans can pick up, to be quite honest. Yeah, it's going to be difficult for fans to force huge changes when you look at the amount of shares there is at the club and how much are held by guys that have values of 13 billion quid. It is really, really difficult. However, Celtic fans are meeting again this week as part of the Celtic Fans Collective to discuss the next steps at trying to force change within the club. And as soon as I have details, updates on that, I'll be able to give you them right here on this channel. But yeah, just a bit of an interesting one that's popped up this past 24 hours. Right, that does it for today then. If you've enjoyed, please make sure to go down below, hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. I'll be back tomorrow as usual, ahead of Celtic's return at the weekend. So until then, take care of yourself, God bless, and I'll see you all next time.